Jazz time. I know you can play the guitar. How about I get an instrument and we jam together? You still got that ocarina around here, boss? Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here. We're taking a look at arguably a definite fan favorite among the Transformer fans. This is Jazz. This version of Jazz was released in 1984. Well, at least Jazz was released in 1984. He would also be available in 1985, which is what this version is, since he has the rub sign over here on the right side of his chest. That gives you a better view of it. And he would be discontinued in 1986. And of course, Jazz being one of the popular figures in the toy line, he did reappear numerous times in the series. Jazz got a second toy in 1989, where he would be released as a Pretender figure. The comic books state that when Ratchet was forced by the Decepticons to resurrect Starscream using Pretender technology, he used that opportunity to also bring about the resurrections of Bumblebee, Grimlock, and Jazz. Jazz would be given considerably more speed, strength, and power, including an ability to blare out some more sound waves to disorient his opponents. Now, of course, there were two versions of this toy released, as we should mention. This would be the first version, the whole Pretender, and there would be another version, which would be just of the robot here, released at Kmart stores under the banner of Transformer Legends. Like his fellow Pretender classics, Jazz would get on the shelves with Bumblebee, Grimlock, and Starscream, and they would be sold on retail pegs. Jazz and Bumblebee would often have, on their card backers, they would have the other figure's gun. So, rather strange for them, but they were interesting toys in their own right. The tech specs would be modified to eliminate all references to the Pretender shell. Jazz would return to the line a year later in 1990 as an Action Master. And he would be given one of the more unique added pieces. Instead of having a companion robot or a backpack unit, Jazz came with a skateboard. So, somewhat fitting with the character of Jazz. Jazz was basically a special operations agent for the Autobots, but he also seemed to instinctively get a lot of our pop culture. The music of Earth seemed to really be a big thing with Jazz. But he seemed to fit in with among the Earth culture very well. In the 1980s cartoon, he was voiced by veteran actor Scatman Crothers. As many of the voice actors have stated in lots of interviews about him, Scatman in between takes would entertain them all, usually with songs from his guitar. So he was a beloved person as much as his character was. Sadly, he would pass away while the 1986 animated film would be in post-production. So, when Season 3 came up, many of the later episodes that would have featured Jazz had the lines given to other characters, and Jazz would slowly be phased out of the line. a more fitting way to go, especially after the controversies over how many of the other characters were gotten rid of in the 1986 film. Alright, there's something else that we should point out about this version of Jazz here, the 1985 version. There is an alternate version of this toy available. As a cross-promotion with Cookie Crisp cereal, they had a contest where you could win a version of Jazz. That version would remove any and all references to the Martini Group and to Porsche. So those stickers would be eliminated and replaced with other stickers. Now, there's about 25,000 of those supposedly out there. A friend of mine did see one a number of years ago, and I tried to convince her to pick it up, but she didn't, and it's kind of now knowing more that it wasn't just a special mail away, it was actually a contest prize. Kind of wish she had, but that's all in the past now. Now, of course, Jazz is one of the many reasons why, for a good number of years, the Porsche automakers refused to have anything to do with licensing out the likeness of their vehicles for violent robot toys. This came about, though not from the 1980s release, but more from the live-action Transformer movies. However, with the showing of the Rise of the Beasts, they have obviously rescinded that decision since Mirage had a Porsche as his alternate mode. I guess Porsche's still reeling from the fact that they've lost out on numerous accolades to advertise their vehicles, since famously the 80s version of Magnum PI, the car in it was originally to be a Porsche. However, Tom Selleck's tall size made it difficult for him to get in and out of the car. Porsche refused to do anything to assist with the production on that, so they went with Ferrari. And Ferrari was more than willing to help out however they could to allow the actor to be able to be in their car. And seeing as that version of Magnum went on for 8 seasons, with probably about 40 viewings every of the year, out of 52 weeks, 40 weeks of it being on television, that's a lot of time for a car to be advertised. Porsche's probably still regretting that decision. Here's to violent robots. Alright, let's take a look at Jazz's accessories right now, and we will start with his gun. Of course, like a fair amount of many of their weapons in the 84 line, they were done up in a chrome color. Done up with this chrome coating that often wears out. This one's actually in rather decent shape, so I definitely shouldn't criticize my brother too much on this. And then next up, we have his missile. Jazz comes with 3 of these missiles. These missiles are rather unique to Jazz. It's got a nice ribbing here on the one side, but it's all covered over on the opposite side. But all in all, it looks rather nice. And then, of course, Jazz's last accessory is the launcher itself. even though the weapon is basically stated in most of the lore to be a flamethrower. It attaches with this special plug here, so it cements itself behind his head, and then just peeks over his right shoulder. It's a good way to store the weapon. It's more secure that way, because a lot of the others featured ones that mounted on their shoulder joints, and they were usually made of rather inferior plastic that broke over time. Again, as well as many of the other toys, the launcher has been neutered on this, so you're not going to get any propulsion out of that. Now we'll take a look here at Jazz's articulation, and it's pretty much relegated to the arms. You can rotate the arms at the shoulders. That's really as far as this one will go, and frankly, given how old this toy is and the poor shape, I really don't want to do any more to break it. And of course, you can bend his arms at the elbow. Of course, the arms raise out to the side relatively easily as well. And one thing I want to point out when you're looking for loose Jazzes is you want to check the windscreen here. The windscreen is on very thin plastic and is frequently broken on loose samples of Jazz, so you do want to watch out for that if you are in the market for a G1 version. I would probably recommend instead, unless you're real adamant that you have to have a G1, get a modern version of Jazz, because it's less likely to break as easily. Alright, to transform Jazz, we're going to take the head, and we're going to kind of start to fold it down as we shift the chest. For part of that, we're probably going to have to remove the windscreen, because it connects on some posts to his head. And on my version, it tends to get stuck. There we go, we actually got it freed. But we need to raise the body out a bit so that it separates itself from the body there. Stay upright there, Jazz. Let me see, do the doors reach the hole? No, they don't. Then we got to fold up this midsection, and then rest the body in it, and then the doors will connect to his waist. His arms, you're going to want to bring them in. You fold down the tire that forms the shoulder. One arm you'll rotate up, bend at the elbow to go under the front bumper. And the other one will twist me in the right direction and bend it down so it goes close to the body. You'll have to adjust the fists so that the holes are in the right position, because there is a peg at his shoulder. And the hands are intended to fit into those. This way it kind of helps to keep them from moving about. Get those doors reattached because we knocked them loose. And as you can see, the windscreen fell off. Yeah, it fell off. It didn't break. On this one that I have here, it just repegs back in. Just got to be careful with it. Press his legs together, fold them up, keep these metal feet down. Adjust the rear window so it goes in right, and then slide it forward. And then there we have it. Jazz is in his alternate form of a Porsche 935. He's specifically made to be the one that Martini sponsored and won races back in 1976. So, rather interesting version of it. Definitely commemorates the fact that this one won by making him into a robot. And a rather cool one at that. Quickly shifting back into the robot mode so that we can show off a few more things. Doo-doo-dee-doo. Get out. There went the windshield again. Figure for the moment we'll just leave it off. We'll just leave it off for the time being. And I'll just leave the weapons off too. This is Okay, we're gonna have to put it on or Jazz's head won't look in the right direction. There we go. That's better. We'll just leave the weapons off. And move on to the next thing. Yes, Larry, I want the card. Thank you, Larry. Here is Jazz's tech spec card. It is done up in red to show that he is an Autobot. It even says Autobot above the picture. And of course, this picture would be the same on the front of his box. It lists his function as Special Operations Agent. And a quote associated with Jazz is, "Do it with style or don't bother doing it." Jazz loves Earth culture, always looking to learn more. His knowledge of Earth makes him the indispensable right-hand man to Optimus Prime. Takes most dangerous missions. Very cool, very stylish, very competent. Equipped with photon rifle, flamethrower, full-spectrum beacon, 180 decibel stereo speakers. Creates dazzling, disorienting sound and light shows. Versatile, clever, daring, but prone to be distracted. You'd probably get distracted by a lot of the different things that are seen here on Earth. Then we go over here to the grid to get his vitals. Normally we would need a decoder over this, but I can read the line pretty well. It gives his strength as 5, his intelligence is 9, his speed is 7, his endurance is 7, his rank is 8, his courage is 9, his firepower is 5, and his skill is 10. So, aside from a few average things, Jazz is certainly more than capable of doing his job. Now, of course, since Jazz has been a prominent character in the series, there have been numerous toys done of him. Unfortunately, I do not have a whole lot of them. But I do have one in particular to show off again. I do have the studio version of Jazz. This is the Studio 86 version, so this is as close to a cartoon-accurate Jazz as we've ever gotten. As you can see, it carries over many of the design elements. The one biggest difference, aside from taking away any of the Martini references, is the racing number has been changed to 14 instead of 4. Probably as part of a way for Hasbro to disassociate it with the Porsche. Since this one was made before Rise of the Beasts came out, so the deal to allow it probably wasn't in the full spectrum, but it might have been, because he does resemble the car mode relatively well, so that may be why Jazz, despite being a relatively minor player in the animated movie, was one of the first toys to get made. Of course, this version was also redone up for the Walmart exclusive Toxitron series, and the bright red and orange colors were meant to be of a Jazz that was intended to be released in Generation 2, but never got released. So we get down to my thoughts. What do I think of Jazz? Jazz has always been a character I loved as a child. I enjoy the antics that he would get up to. And all in all, he is still a rather great character. I'm disappointed in the fact that in Michael Bay's version of the Transformer movie, Jazz was underutilized. For such a prominent character that many of us know and love, it was sad to see him just to be relegated to be nothing more than a token character just to get killed in the ending moments of the movie. It just didn't even exploit a lot of Jazz's personality, and it seemed like such a waste. But however, this version of Jazz, it's a nice toy all around, except my sample. So definitely, if you can manage to track down a version that's in good shape, I'd say go for it, but remember, he is extremely fragile, so if you want Jazz in your lineup, you may be better off tracking this one down. And that's my review of the Generation 1 version of Jazz. I hope you all enjoyed it. And please do remember that if you love the content we feature here on this channel, I would appreciate a like, a comment, and a share. And please do subscribe if you haven't done so already. This is Sparkster1701 saying I will catch you all later.